Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Well, one of the worst kept secrets in heavyweight boxing has now been confirmed. You have Lucas Browne set to meet Junior Fa, and this will be on the undercard of Devin Haney versus George Kambosos, that fight in Australia, June 4th. So also featuring on the undercard, you have Hemi Ahio. He will be taking on Joe Jones. So what do I make of these two heavyweight fights? Well, I can't say that I'm absolutely buzzing, but what we'll do is we'll go through the press release statements, because they are really trying to talk up Lucas Browne as someone who's still a factor at 43 years old. And the Ahio fight, well, not much chop, but we'll get to that. So starting with the comments for Lucas Browne for his fight with Junior Fa. So Browne says, "I would love nothing more to fight for another world title, and Junior Fa is standing in my way. If I can put him away early, that will send a message to the boxing world that I am far from finished. He's only lost once in his career, to Joseph Parker. I plan to hand him his second defeat." And then you have Junior Fa, who they say has notable wins over Devin Vargas and Dominic Quinn. "I 100% back myself, but I'm not taking Lucas lightly, as he's a former world champ and he was stopped by Gallen with some illegal blows. So I don't count that as a loss for him. He has his power and we saw him use it to KO his last opponent. I'll be getting the best Lucas Browne for this fight." Wow, he said that, "as I'm in the way of him being a contender again. It's a huge opportunity for him and it's going to be a tough fight." Wow. Where do we start with that? I guess someone's been writing some comedy into these press releases, because Lucas Browne is far from his best days. I mean, they've noted Junior Fa being 32 years old, but clearly very careful to leave out that Lucas Browne is now 43 years old and well past prime. And I would note, I mean, they talk up this in this press release that the winner moves back to contender level and back into the world title picture. No, just scrape that from your mind, because that's absolutely horse manure. That is not going to be the case for either. At this point, this is nothing more than a tune-up for Junior Fa. Lucas Browne is washed. He is absolutely washed, and that was evidenced in that fight against Whainga Opilu, who was piecing him up for about 5 or 6 rounds, whatever it was, before he gassed out. And then Lucas Browne, who looked slow and plodding, took him out. We knew that this fight was coming, and I know some people are going to be absolutely against it, because there is a case to say Lucas Browne is in real danger of taking some serious punishment in this fight and any other fights that he's in at this point, and taking and sustaining some permanent damage. So I'm not really on board with this fight in a sense, but for Junior Fa, it does represent some name value on his resume, but also remembering that Junior Fa is a Lou DiBella fighter. Lou DiBella is the promoter of record. He's working with Top Rank to put on this event in Australia, etc. Junior Fa and Hemi Ahio are the house fighters. So these, for the opponents, they're hand-picked opponents. And as we know, Lucas Browne has been casting around trying to get the biggest paydays and opportunities that he can for the time that he's got left in the sport. So you can understand what he's doing, why he's doing it. You know, he wants to try go out and, get a few more paydays. He's been very open about that. He has basically said, look, I'm trying to get as much money as I can while I can. He said, I've never made massive amounts from the sport, as people might think. So I can understand his position. But you also have a case here with this guy who is clearly well on the decline, completely rinsed, and he's going to take some punishment in this fight. Lucas Browne is not going to be at his best, and the fact that they quoted Fa as saying that he's going to get the best Lucas Browne is farcical and comical and flat out just a complete lie. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. A 43-year-old washed version of Lucas Browne is in for some serious punishment. This fight has no relevance for the heavyweight division. I know why they've made it. It's a showcase for Junior Fa on a big card. He comes back from a year absence from the ring since his loss to Joseph Parker, where he was competitive. That was a good fight with Parker in the sense that he did better than many expected. He didn't win that fight. Some people have made a case that maybe he could have got close to winning it. Some people thought that he did. But ultimately, he put up a credible performance. And the fact that he was competitive there does not bode well for Lucas Browne. Diminishing returns in recent years. Stopped by Paul Gallen in a round. Getting pieced up by Whainga Opilo before Opilo gassed out. Dave Allen stopped him 3 years ago. Enough said right there. This is a mismatch at this point of epic proportions. And clearly through the press release, they're trying to talk up Browne, that he's rejuvenated, that basically he's a guy that's trying to get back to contender status, all this sort of stuff. Even Browne himself on social media has been trying to reposition stuff around sparring, that he's getting much better sparring now, so that will lead to a better performance. But the reality is Father Time is undefeated. And Lucas Browne is now 43 years old. And he's about to face a guy in Junior Fa who's basically as close to his prime that he'll ever be. This is going to end badly. It's going to end in a knockout. He could sustain some long-term damage. Perhaps, maybe it'll be a case like the Dave Allen one. He'll take a shot to the body, take a knee. I mean, that would seemingly be the most merciful one to see himself counted out that way. But anyway, it is what it is. I haven't said too much about this fight in recent months. We knew it was happening, but I don't like it. I think they could have done better, should have done better for Junior Fa, but this is a glorified showcase. And so too for Hemi Ahio. And actually, I feel worse for Hemi Ahio because he is going to be facing a guy in Joe Jones, who's a cruiserweight, who's got a record of 13-4. Joe Jones has been stopped by the likes of Joey DeVaco, Ifitapor Apochi, and you've also got Shondell Winters. And he was knocked out in those 3 fights. Not only that, Joe Jones is basically a cruiserweight who's been fighting at heavyweight a couple of times. So Hemi Ahio is going to go in here, and it's a showcase fight. He's going to absolutely destroy Joe Jones, knock him out brutally, and then we're basically going to go, wow, what a knockout. But I'm looking at this going, these are the sorts of opponents that Hemi Ahio, at 31 years old, should have been fighting about 4 or 5 years ago. Not at the stage of his career. What does this do for him? The last few years, it's just kind of been a little bit of a write-off. And we know he did have some management problems at one point, but his career has just really failed to launch. He's clearly got power. He, is a pocket rocket. He's explosive. He's a fun fighter to watch. But they just can't seem to get him in any meaningful fights. And this is not a meaningful fight. It does nothing really for him. And it feels, to me at least, from the outside looking in, that it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. Big card, and you can't get him anything halfway decent. And I'm sorry, it's not decent. I know some people say, oh, well, he's been out of the ring for, a year now, or the best part of a year. Come on, do better than that. I mean, the last couple of years, you've had Muhammad Ali Bayad Farid, which was a fight in the Middle East that was a nothing fight. That guy was the cruiserweight too. Stopped him in 2 rounds. You had Julius Long, that was in 2021, and that was a rematch. Hemi Ahio beat him a few years earlier. I don't understand what they're doing and how they're managing and navigating his career, because it feels like it's going nowhere fast, which is a shame for a guy who's so talented. I can understand, I guess, for Junior Fa and Lucas Browne, there's name recognition in Browne, and that's part of it. And you can try to position a good-looking win against the former, guy who was a belt holder in Browne. But what's the upside for the Joe Jones fight for Hemi Ahio? It's a showcase and nothing more. It achieves absolutely nothing. So for me, it's massively disappointing. And I knew it would be someone who wasn't much chop, just because there was no name connected with him until this announcement, which meant a month out, it's not going to be anyone we want to see Ahio in against. Probably feels like I've been a bit uber negative in this video, but come on. We've got to see these guys pushing on in better fights. Nothing about these fights gets them closer to some sort of title shot. The winner of either of these fights is not stepping into a title fight next. It's just not happening. And it's delusional for them to even be suggesting that this puts them into title contention, especially for Junior Fire if he beats Lucas Browne. All that means is he beats a washed Browne. It doesn't put him into, a final eliminator or anything close. Anyway, what do you make of this? Drop a comment loud enough and hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.